that have come into some sectoral via some way of sectoral facilities. Now, although he didn't mention exactly the manner at which this intervention would come in, but on the issue of the monetary policy, what we have is that the MPC committee, that's the Monetary Policy Committee, decided that the measures or the indicators remain the same. And what we have there is the MPR remains at 11.5%. This is the rate that CBN funds banks. Also, the CR, that's the cash reserve ratio, remains at 27.5%, and the liquidity ratio at 30%. CRR, for those who don't know, is the rate that banks are expected to keep a certain portion of their money with the CBN. Now, the idea or the rationale behind this policy, as usual, is that they're trying to ensure stimulation of economic activity, which is why they're pumping some money into the hands of Nigerian citizens to spur some level of economic resurgence amid the recession, which everyone knows now that has been announced. Now, he did speak to the issue of the uh, exchange rate, which he mentioned was currently at three. It was hovering between 380 and 386 thereabouts, and he said that for those analysts that had said that or had recommended that they should keep it at 480, which is where around the rates that the parallel market is hovering, he said that they were misinforming the public, that they should know that such rates are fixed on issues of demand and supply, and that the current high was due to bribery dollars available in the market. That's the first time I'm hearing that. But the truth is, there are other indicators that are actually defining our economy. And usually, you want to hear more from the finance minister who has the she's like in custody, or she's the driver of the fiscal policy, which combines both what the CBN is saying, the monetary policy, and the federal government's plans. And we're talking about issues of inflation, which has been on the rise. Okay, commodity prices are skyrocketing even before Christmas has come. And this is not a surprise given the, the hard hit economy by the slump in oil prices, the high debt servicing that Nigeria has been doing at about 90% per every naira spent. The
94%.
94%. I mean, those are just unbelievable figures. The How would I say it? Even though the crude oil price is going up, which is a warm indicator for the these are harsh challenges which Nigerians still face, and the trickling effect from the federal government's decisions to the common man will take a while.
Yeah.
Even let me just say, I've been crying for the federal government to intervene. Remember, even though COVID, the lockdown is over, the situation of hunger and poverty in the nation hasn't shifted. So even though it
It's
doesn't,
achievement. It's gotten worse.
yeah, it's gotten worse. But even though it's not spoken to every day,
Yeah.
the hunger you saw at play, Nigerian citizens were plundering COVID-19 warehouses,
Yeah.
is still a threat, near and
Absolutely.
present threat.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Devoe. Let's move on to our next story. NSAS protest. Guardian reports Oprah in Senate over compensation for victims of the protests. Now, according to this report, we read that Abiodun Olujimi, PDP Ekiti State, had raised the point of order inviting the Senate to urge the federal government to set up a visitation panel, just a level of compensation for those who had suffered from the NSAS protest. Now, it took a different turn when Sani Musa, APC Niger State, rose to counter the prayers of Oluji. Break this down for us, Cheta.
There's nothing to break down there. Sani Musa, for those who may not know, is the one who introduced this nefarious social media bill into the Senate. But that besides the point, I think it's too tempting to focus on the nitty gritty of what happened. I prefer to focus on the larger geopolitical thing, where if you
No, but please,
notice,
I'd like you to still react to it before we focus on the geopolitical thing. Thank you.
Senator Lujimi said Lagos needs compensation. Now, note Senator Lujimi is from Ekiti,
Yeah.
basically southwest.
Okay.
And then somebody from the north stood up and said, "Oh, that we've been having banditry, wana, so that is we should be compensated for that."
Okay.
And then somebody from the south came up and said that that destruction also happened in our side.
Yeah.
Then, and this is what I want to focus on.
All
So
right.
I'm sorry, but
Oh, it's okay. But it was good to lay
former
that
deputy
foundation.
senate president Ike Madu, maybe perhaps because he's the oldest, I don't know, because I didn't rate him that much when he was deputy senate president. I still don't rate him that much. He said, and I quote, "One of the lessons that should be learned from the protest was that those of us in power have not done enough for the downtrodden people to get jobs. Security men are not enough to cover the country and were therefore overstretched. There is a need to decentralize our police. It is a way for our country." And that, for me, is the meat of the whole thing. I'm pleasantly shocked that it's coming from Ike Ekweremadu, but it is the NSAS protests, for anybody who is really listening, was actually a protest driven by food inflation, high exchange rates, and unreasonably high unemployment. That is the reason that we had so many bodies getting. What made the NSAS protest the longest protest since 1945, or the longest continuous protest since 1945 in this country, was the fact that the protest organizers were feeding people. So you had a toxic mix of, again, combined unemployment rates, and I'll keep repeating this. Out of every 20 people we were captured, 11 of them don't get within the do. And then you now had protesters who were giving them something to eat. So naturally they went there. It was sustained.
Yeah.
There's no way, heaven, earth, hell, Valhalla, whatever, that you will have enough security people if this thing breaks out spontaneously in enough places. So it is for the way to is preemptive in a sustainable manner. The government needs to focus on doing what is necessary to get these people off this by engaging them, which is by creating the right policies in place to make sure that people have jobs, people have something to do, and that whatever they earn can take them home. Because right now we're being hit by the dual shocks of inflation rates at over 17%. That's food inflation, which is the key thing. And why food inflation is very important is because, I mean, my organization did a study last year that showed that 37%, 63% of Nigerians don't have any money to spend after they have spent on food. The NBS did a study that calculated that because they showed that Nigerians spend 59% of their income on food. So food inflation is very important. Now, when the money in your pocket cannot even make you eat, this is for people that have something to do. We're not talking of the 11 out of every 20 that don't have anything to do. Then you add that 11 and you see how dangerous the situation is. So this is what we should be talking about. So I've never seen Sani Musa, for example, he has not raised issues about the completely hostile security situation in North until it was time to start saying, oh, if Lagos is getting compensation, compensate us too. That is being a dog in the manger.
All right. Thank you. I hope, just to highlight, because I know in taking out of context, you're not calling him a dog in the manger. It's
not my fault that people don't understand.
I understand, but that's
this is why Canada makes us right.
Much. It's a figure of speech. It's not addressing the man himself. This day says federal government UK parliamentarians threat of sanction over rights abuse. Issues that should matter, the foundation of the protest as opposed to the surface. We're going to the surface now. The UK parliamentarians debated sanctioning those principal actors behind the shootings at the Lekki toll gate on the 20th of October 2020. And the federal government yesterday had earlier written a letter in response to the CNN article saying that it didn't happen. Now they've reacted to the parliamentarians' debate, saying that they're unperturbed by resolutions of the they don't it doesn't really matter.
Okay, basically, it's a story about the FG's reactions to the UK parliamentarian debate, as well as the CNN updated report on the NSAR's protest. Now, in the UK parliamentarians, it is in their usual fashions that if petitions come forward based on signatories, and I think this came with a petition signed by over 220 signatories, and kind of fashion that maybe we may decide here in Nigeria to start adopting, which shows participation.
Yes.
However, they were looking or debating on the alleged violations by the Nigerian government, that human rights violations to the NSARS protesters. And the FG, in its response, that was through the Minister of Information, Lai Mohammed, did say that they were not disturbed about the resolutions that were taken, that no responsible government would take a position on the premise of fake news, right?
So still standing by his Cheta.
Yes, and that the FG also knew that the parliamentarians' position did not reflect they were not bothered, and that also, even with the release of the second CNN reports, which had taken a position also that the Nigerian government, through the military, did not act appropriately, and that they had shot citizens with live bullets, which the position has shifted twice due to the revelations from the judicial panel from the army, as well as some of more shots that were CCTV TVs that were unveiled. Lai Mohammed did say that CNN was desperate and was grasping at what do you call it, strings, just to
He sounds like Donald Trump.
Yes, he does, and that they still maintain their position that nothing that CNN has shown has proven or disproved what the federal government's position was. Now, the truth is, other people did react to this. Pandef did say that the position by the UK parliamentarians was they hailed it. They also did state that it was, I think, from Afenifere that the time for judgment on bloodsuckers has arrived. And then the ACF, that's the Arawa Consultative Forum, said that they were losing confidence in the UK parliamentarians. That long ago, they had alleged that our former head of state, that's Gowon, had stolen half of the treasury, and they were saying that Gowon is known as one of the cleanest politicians ever, and that they just come up with frivolous positions that even to date they've not been able to prove. It's a tough position for the country at this point in time, and I think the largest debate on some people is as to whether Nigerians or where the pensions for Nigerians are to take our issues outside, either to the UK or the Americans or the ICC, etc., versus our ability in-house to resolve our problems. And it's a real shame that at the end of the day that we've not, as a nation, been able to find concrete ways of addressing our issues. Rather, it seems government stokes fake news because remember, they said they were pushing the bill for fake news and social media, and for each time in this NSAR's Lekki saga, their story has shifted. So who now is the real advocate of fake news? Who's actually providing fake news? If you can't give a position up front that people can trust, and one of the biggest losses in this NSAR's process was a loss of confidence of Nigerian people with their government.
All right.
Can I just add something?
No, you can't. Our time. We're very limited. I'm so sorry. You can tweet it though. So people can read your tweet. God bless you, Cheta. I've always opined, this is a comment from WhatsApp, I've always opined that the protest wasn't sustained by people's anger, but by the fact that people who were jobless and are not in school were being fed for free. So we have a scenario where they can feed for free and still be
Square news.
Yes. and be a part of a fight. So that was, like you mentioned, sustained by that. And John, on the other end, says the money spent feeding protesters can start online businesses for them. Nigerian
Who
youths
fed?
all have Android phones.
It wasn't the government.
This comment is, it says the youth can employ themselves. Job creation is a private sector responsibility, not government. What do you think about that?
He's right, but the money that came for the
No,
South
he's
protesters was from them.
He's wrong.
Okay, so
Job creation.
well, hold on, it's a debate. So one sentence as to why it's the responsibility of corporate and government.
Why is the responsibility of?
He said it's not the responsibility of the government, it's for by the private sector.
No, that's
Okay,
wrong. I was
all
reacting to the former position.
right,
The
okay.
food that came about during the protest was by the protesters,
Yeah.
not any effort of the government.
See, at the end of the day, the fact of the matter is, you start a business, and then one government policy, like in the next story we're going to talk about, to destroy the business.
Let's
So
talk
what's the
about that
point of it?
story. So, creating an enabling business environment in Nigeria. The Vice President, Professor Yemi Oshibajo, says why Nigeria is slashing duty on imported cars from 35% to 5%. This report is contained in the Premium Times, and he's talked about a number of challenges and why they're doing this. Please, Cheta, explain.
So basically, I mean, I remember I railed on this place, in this place, when they put that policy, and for the record, it was not this government that put it. It was Shegun Aganga under Jonathan that put that policy. But I screamed and kicked and shouted, policy remained in place for 7 years. Now finally somebody has seen the light. And the ironic thing is, it was Hamid Ali of all people that pushed for it to be removed. So in a classic example of how bad policies feed off each other, it is the private sector, as evidenced by the chief executive of God is Good,
yes.
Chidi Ajero, that is kicking against it. But you see,
so sorry, the reason why he said that they're kicking against it is because he said it doesn't speak well for investors.
He didn't say investors. He said it doesn't encourage local manufacturers.
Okay.
That is what he said.
But investing in local manufacturing,
it is not. See, protectionism doesn't work. What works is, and this again, so we've had 7 years to watch this policy. What works is when you actually open yourself to competition so that you can improve your own. And then when you improve your own, you now let it compete. Then your own people. Did anybody protect us against foreign music? But Nigerian music is competing very favorably.
True.
As an example. Now, just to buttress the point, let me give a few numbers. 40,000, 42,000, 15,600, 19,200, 4,700, 8,600, and 5,100. These numbers are the numbers of new cars that Nigeria imported every year, that were sold in Nigeria every year since the policy started. Notice that there was a spectacular drop-off. And such that at a point we were selling less than 10,000 cars a year. Now we are selling less than 5,000 cars a year, as in new cars. Even banks are now buying second hands to give people in management positions because of the effect of that policy. Basically, the number one, the capacity to produce cars here to meet the demands does not exist. In 7 years, we've not been able to build it up. Even if we are able to build it up, because of the effects of that policy. So, for example, if I go to say, you can buy so there's something in the US called certified refurbished, where people will buy a brand new car, use it for about a year or two, and then back to the manufacturer who will refurbish it and then certify that it is us, the manufacturer, that refurbished it, and then they'll put it on the market. Knocks off about half the value. So which means that this is the end of 2020. So you can buy a 2018 random car, Kia Optima. You can buy a 2018 Kia Optima in Houston, Texas for about $20,000. And then by the time you ship it to Nigeria, first at the gates we'll add 35%. This is before other normal customs duties. Easily, very easily, that thing that you bought for $20,000 in Houston will get to about $38,000 by the time it gets to the showroom here. Nobody's going to buy it because it doesn't make financial sense. But we don't have the capacity to produce that car here. So that means that what we now buy as new cars are essentially older cars that have been refurbished.
Yeah,
It's
mismatch.
and one of the ways of measuring the health of an economy is how much confidence people have in buying new cars. Because on average, people don't buy new cars for cash; they take loans. Good example, me, my car outside. I bought it in 2013 with for 5 million naira. Same car now is 13.5 million naira at the same showroom that I bought it from. No bank is offering those car facilities anymore. That is that is as in, so we are seeing, or we have watched a classic example of how a bad policy has ruined one sector.
Right. So
And
despite
the
the
shame
explanation,
here
it's still
is
a
that
bad
it took
policy.
7 years for us to remove this.
All right, thank you. This day
Most
reports.
of our policies are reactionary.
This day reports, Devoe, Labor vows to declare strike if federal government fails to reverse price. So when I read the headline, Cheta, your laughter. Don't. There are people are listening. You know they're driving. So when I read this headline, Devoe, I thought I must have made a mistake. Maybe I read last week's or 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago because it's the same thing. Surprising again that we have this threat. Please, I mean, organized labor have threatened that may embark on strike if all entities to get the federal government to reverse the recent increase in the price of petrol fail. They've done this before, it hasn't worked. So why are they embarking on another strike?
Well, as usual, well, they're not embarking on strike.
They said they might.
There was a threat assumed by reporters due to their walkouts during the negotiation meetings with the federal government. As you know, with the increase in price, Labour had threatened that they would take some level of collective action, given the fact that the federal government did not consult with them fully before taking that move. Now, what they did on flimsy reasons. However, that their walkout was based on what do you call it? An expression of anger or the dissatisfaction with the government that whilst they were still having committee meetings on the price and tariffs, that the federal government went straight to increase the price. So what they were saying was that they hadn't exhausted all their options and that they were still in discussions with the federal government. One of the clear positions they put forward was that they didn't agree with the regulation, the full regulation which the federal government had proposed, and that it wasn't a full regulation, that price fixing is still going on, and that the full regulation should not come until our refineries are working, because the regulation, in their view, was based on import driven. So if the price of crude goes up, our price goes up as it is currently. If it comes down, of which we hardly ever see it, and I kind of agree with that. However, the fight for the balance with the refinery comes with the PIB being passed, and that's still hanging in the fall. So their argument should be with the National Assembly, and I expect them to address that, because in the long run, that is what Nigeria requires. We can't just wait on one refinery, that's a Dangote refinery. You need an even playing field for everyone to be able to put in their capacity there. But in the meantime, the federal government, which is almost like the story that we spoke to before, the reactionary positions we take. You protect on one angle as a reaction to an immediate problem without looking at the balancing arm. So we increase tariffs on car importations without creating an enabling environment for production. Obviously, we couldn't meet up. We froze importation of some certain commodities on one angle in the name of our money is being depleted. Without creating
maize.
Yes.
Sure, the maize one was immediate.
Without creating an enabling environment for local people to produce to meet up.
And then they want to ban fish.
And at the end of the day, we always come to the point of realizing, hey, we can't survive anymore. Or yeah, start opening up. We can't keep making these parcels. You really want to ask whether the federal government is listening to the economic advisors when they take these positions.
All right, thank you. Cheta, you've become like his hype man. You say something, you say something.
I'm learning.
Tactic.
All right, okay. Thank you.
Don Yazzie was the boundaries hype man that time. Look at him.
All right. Vanguard newspaper report. Electoral Act Amendment Bill passes second reading in the House of Reps. A bill for an act to repeal the Electoral Act and enact the Independent National Electoral Commission Bill 2020 has passed the second reading. The article breaks down the merits of this bill. Please share with us and your thoughts on how far they should go and if it's
It needs to
sufficient.
go very far.
Mhm.
And I think what we should be doing now is focusing on end results, not just talking also. Because one of it is, so it's very important that people attend the public hearing.
Yes.
Very, very important. So that's, and then it's very important that we force our legislators, because one bad habit that they've developed is, I have attended some public hearings. So for example, the Police Act, I was at the public hearing. And then when the Police Act was signed, what we saw was had differences from what was agreed in the public hearing. So something has broken down there. But let's talk about the Electoral Act, or the effect, the consequences of the current Electoral Act. One of the problems that people have been complaining about is depleting turnout in elections. So, for example, the Edo State election that just concluded, the Ondo State election, both of them had less than 30% turnout. 30% turnout is 30% turnout of registered voters.
Wow.
That's a problem.
It is a problem.
So, and voter turnout has been decreasing year on election cycle on election cycle. So, for example, the 2011 presidential election, voter turnout was 54%, which came down from 58% in 2007 and 6% in 2003. By 2015, voter turnout had fallen to 44%, and in 2019, it was 35%. Now, what does this 35% mean? 5% means divide it by half, because Buhari just over half of the votes.
Yeah.
So 18.5% of registered voters voted for Buhari. 18.5% of registered voters. In effect, less than 1 in 5 registered voters voted for Buhari. Consider that the number of registered voters was 82.3 million, which is less than half of the entire Nigerian population. We can actually extrapolate these figures and say that just about 1 out of 20 Nigerians voted for the current president. So the policies that we are all complaining every day, and saying that these bad policies are affecting us, it was less than just about 1 out of 20 people on the road that endorsed those policies.
Yeah.
So what happens to the other 19? We have to find a way to encourage people to come out to vote. But under current electoral acts, we see the violence that those elections. We see the advanced rigging that happens in the collation centers and all of that. The electoral act needs to change so that all of this can be eliminated and people can have confidence to come out to vote. Right. Otherwise, we delegitimize our governments.
Thank you very much, Cheta. We're out of time. Thank you. Final comment, final headline I'll just say as a way of mention, because I saw it and I just had to smile. Plateau looters return stolen items seeking forgiveness. You need to read this one. It's in the Punch newspaper. And also, Punch also has the federal government may ban tankers above 10 years and enforce load capacity. Thank you very much to all our listeners. And of course, a special thanks to our analysts for today, Devoe Okore. You can find him at Devoe Okore on Twitter, and Cheta Wanze. You can find him at Cheta on Twitter. In a few minutes, we'll be back for Locker Room 981 815 to be precise. Tega will be joining me then for today's analysis. Stay tuned. Good morning.
The headlines.
Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you.
Come on, people holding your events this year.
Are we doing events?
What
What kind of event?
The time of Corona
You
start.
do virtual now.